So for people that don't know you well, we're going to take it back to the beginning. So, could you share some pivotal moments that have shaped your life from, I would say birth, or the cognitive mind, they say that can't remember things much before like age 3. So maybe from like 10 to present day. So key moments in your life that has shaped the woman that you now are.
Okay, well, from 10, I'm just thinking from between 10 to 16, I'd say my GCSEs.
And you grew up where? Sorry, what area?
I grew up in North London. So by the time I was doing my GCSEs, I think at the time I was living in like Enfield. Yeah. So yeah, I remember. So I did really well with English, no surprise. English, art, everything, language and creative, I did really well. The rest was like, yeah, just about got there. And that was a pivotal moment because I remember looking at my GCSEs thinking like, okay, I've got enough, and like some of the grades are okay, but it's like I thought I'll do better. And obviously,
What did you get? Do you remember?
I definitely got like A star to C. I got A star in textiles.
Okay.
Yeah.
Come on, designer.
I mean, I know I was really destined somehow, but yeah, that changed. And then I got B in English, so double B's, and yeah, the rest C's, I guess. But I thought, oh my gosh, because everyone else had like 10 and this and that. So I thought, is that it for me then? But I'm a psychotherapist now.
Yeah,
So
here we
yeah, so it definitely shaped me, that's for sure. Because I thought that was it. 16, you're thinking. But it definitely encouraged me to do better. I think from that moment, I literally pressed the gas when it came to my education.
Okay.
And I've done so well since that moment.
Result.
Yeah.
College, where did you go, or did you stay on at sixth form?
So yeah, I went sixth form. My school didn't have that, so I went to a different sixth form. So I went to a sixth form in Tottenham. And once again, I didn't really do so well. And when I say that, I mean I didn't do how I thought I would do, because I really pushed, but we didn't really have the support that we should have had. So
in terms of teachers,
teachers. I honestly wonder like how they were recruiting teachers then, because now when I think about the recruitment process and what you need, and I feel like I don't know where they got these teachers from. Because in the class we'll be getting A stars, A's, but when we were doing the exams, it was a different result.
How's that happening?
It was no, honestly. I remember that there was a group of people that actually wanted to beat up the teachers but yeah, so I had to self-teach myself through university. It was a lot, but...
Did you go uni in London, out of London?
Yeah, I stayed in London. I feel like I had the freedom, you know? So I wasn't really thinking about, going away so I can get... Like, I had done everything I needed to do.
Yeah.
And my mind was, I want to save. So, you know... so yeah, I guess that was... in my 20s, definitely, I would say one of my heartbreaks.
Romantic heartbreak, platonic heartbreak,
romantic. It was interesting actually, because I was saying to my friend a couple of weeks ago, I don't remember the girl before that age.
Oh really?
I don't remember her at all. Like,
that's interesting.
So I have to literally maybe look at pictures, or if people talk to me about moments before then, that's how I remember, but I'm completely blank. I don't.
Yeah, you've removed her from your...
Like... And it's not even by choice. The trauma was that bad.
Really?
Yeah, the emotional trauma, I should say.
Yeah.
Because you're a bit young, and it's like you kind of don't expect these things to happen. So if anything, I thought, oh my God, you only see these things in the movies. And no, the movie was really my life. Yeah.
Welcome to me. I'm the main character.
So I was just like, but I literally... Like, yeah, I pushed through. I think I pushed through a lot of things, but yeah, I pushed through that. So that was definitely a pivotal moment.
And how long was that push through period?
Oh my gosh, I feel like it was, well, we started at, let's say 16, 17 and ended at, I can't even give the est, because it's just like, it ended in the early part of the 20s. That's where we needed to stay. But yeah, so that, and then I guess completing my studies to become a psychotherapist, I think that was so massive, because I didn't actually know who I was gonna become as a psychotherapist until like I was becoming. I didn't anticipate like how needed that the role is. I really didn't. So I thought, oh my gosh, like I actually went to school for like 5 years to be this. And I thought, no, that's actually sick, Laura. Like that's big.
Yeah.
I ain't going back. But yeah, that's yeah.
And then from maybe what age did that take you up to?
That took me to 25, 26.
Okay,
yeah.
so from then to present day, what are some of the moments that have, and I've like kind of told your age because I know that we're not there anymore. We're not there anymore. From then till present day,
yeah.
What would you say are some of the pivotals that have shaped who now sits here?
I would say my relationships, platonic. Because I've had to do a lot of work to be able to understand how it is to communicate with people and for other people to communicate with you. So I feel like while some people might think, oh, you'll think about like an achievement or something, I think it's literally the essence of those little things like communication, presence, empathy. Those have really shaped who I am from, I'd say, 25 up until now, 100%.
That's so interesting because that's what I just observed, that you didn't say, oh, as a psychotherapist, I've been featured in, I've released such and such. And a lot of that latter part of, I think, 20s is when people are still doing things for the accolade. Not necessarily doing things for the accolade, but they're the pinnacles that matter. But it's clear that the things that matter to you when you were young was your education. And then as a result of your education, now it's about like implementing that into everyday life. And acknowledging that what really is value in life is those things that you mentioned, which I think is so special. I know that there's lots of different types of therapy and psychotherapy. Could you share like top line, just so people have a little bit of context as to what different types of therapy there is and the effects of that?
So I guess I'll start off by saying I'm an integrative psychotherapist. So essentially, integrative psychotherapists have trained to work with various modalities. So we have a lot of range. So for example, psychodynamic, CBT, Gestalt, person-centered.
So
those are the range. And then what they are, so I guess with CBT, which is the most kind of popular, that is usually what's offered by NHS usually, and you get about 6 to 12 sessions, and that's just literally focusing on the cognitive process. So you wouldn't go into having a CBT session and focus on the past. It's literally about how you're feeling now. So if you're feeling anxious, it's working on how to think about those behaviors and how those negative behaviors are affecting your day-to-day. So that's that.
I understand that.
Person-centered would be more so that the therapist is literally just holding the space and paraphrasing what you're saying, but it's more so that they're literally more so just listening to you. So that's that. And psychodynamic is the one that you would focus on the kind of historic past deep-rooted things. So that would be psychodynamic. And I would say those are the three main ones that most people use. And then you kind of filter in with different other modalities depending on what the client's bringing up. So for example, something like Gestalt, there's like an empty chair method that we use, and where we get clients to kind of sit with who they want to speak to. And there's a way that we will facilitate. So
explain what that looks like. If I wanted to do that, there's an actual empty chair. And me and this empty chair have I have a dialogue with this empty chair, thinking about the fact that in the empty chair is the person I want to speak to. Right. And then as a therapist, you would do what?
So I would facilitate the conversation about what's happening. And I guess
that's very powerful, actually.
Notice how you're showing up, because I guess when people think, oh, I'm just going to talk to a chair and there's nothing, but as you get into it, I'm noticing what's coming up for you, and that's what we're going to be discussing, and noticing how it was to speak to them. So
That's very, very powerful. And how do the therapist decide, or does the client decide what type of therapy they would like to do?
So I'm very client focused.
Okay.
So it's down to the client to decide. So usually a lot of people, unless they've been in therapy before and they know exactly the modality they want to use, they come in saying that. But usually it's a case of collaborative work.
Okay.
So any kind of anything I'm introducing, I'm letting the client know. They're able to let me know if they're comfortable with it. If they're not, and a lot of times clients may be uncomfortable just because it's quite triggering and they just don't know how to kind of get out of that space. So be noticing that. So yeah, it's more collaborative. And sometimes when people say I specifically want CBT, for example, whilst that's fine, it's okay, what's drawing you closer to that specific modality?
Yeah.
Because sometimes people just hear of it and it's like, oh, I feel like that best suits me.
Yeah.
But unless you've tried it, you don't actually know. But I guess with integrative psychotherapists, it's good because we've got the range. So we usually kind of flow in session to session.
Okay.
So it would depend on what you're actually speaking about, and that would kind of fit the modality and the tools that we'd use.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I know that I've had therapy before. And I know that whenever I talk to my therapist, I always used to think, how do you hold all of this information and because naturally I found that, well, I've had two therapists in my life. One was a terrible experience.
I want to know about that.
Terrible experience. I had a therapist when I was 14. There was a dynamic shift in my family, and my parents felt that it was necessary for me to talk to someone. So the school I went to provide like a almost like safeguarding kind of environment where you could go and talk to someone completely neutral. This woman, okay, so the best way I can describe her, and this is me trying to be visual so you can really gauge the type of person I'm describing. You see, if you're walking down a street and there's like a house that has overgrown hedges, overgrown weeds, everything outside is unkept. You see maybe 5 different cats in the windows. The type of person that might live there was the woman that was the woman that was my therapist.
Okay.
Just so you have an idea of who I was faced with. She had like long greyish brownish hair down to like her waist. She used to wear like really like groggy clothes, and she literally used to just ask me questions from a sheet. How are you feeling today? Anything I can help with? And how does that make you feel? Literally monotone like this. And it's almost felt like whenever I went to the room, the whole room just got darker.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is a terrible idea.
Yeah.
Why do people choose to have someone that they can supposedly talk to and be open with if this is the experience? This is awful. I'm never doing this again. Forget it. And I guess it was quite a mature suggestion to have a therapist so young. And so young and at that time, I think. Because I think having a therapist at 14 in 2022 is quite a different experience having a therapist at 14 in 2004.
Absolutely.
So like there's also that to contend with. My more recent therapist, I want her to be at my wedding. Like a completely different experience. I found that in our first introductory conversation, I was telling her things just off. I was just chatting, and I thought, wait. I was even like in my brain, like trying to put words back because I thought, oh yeah, I don't usually feel this comfortable with a complete stranger. Like I've never met you before, and also I started therapy in lockdown, so it was all virtual. So there's that element of like not actually having that like energy to feel.
Exactly.
All I have is the screen, and you can be great in the screen. So I thought, oh yeah, Cam, you're being really open and you're this, that and the other. And she has a very calm temperament. I thought I needed a therapist that was a bit like Amanda Seales. So like has like this really direct approach to whatever she's saying, but it's clear that she's got like a really beautiful empathy about her. This therapist is more like Oprah. Okay. So she's got like a gentleness about her, but an equally like a very powerful wisdom about her. And I feel like in all the decisions I've made in my 30s, that is single-handedly probably in the top 3. Like I really don't think, I think therapy is for everyone. And I've also realised that therapy is not when you're in crisis. Do you find that people take therapy?
Absolutely, yeah. And that's because it's come from a place of a response from trauma. So naturally, that's why people have that connotation about it. But actually, people, for example, have never known how to sustain joy. And so that is a reason for therapy, because essentially you can self-sabotage yourself out of that joy because you've never known how to maintain it. And therapy can actually help you to actually understand that, well, you're actually deserving of this, etc. So a lot of people tend to just think, because if I've experienced something bad, and it's like, no, it could be anything. So yeah,
I think that really is powerful, and it kind of links me onto something that someone commented under one of your Instagram posts. They said, I used to believe you had to completely heal in order to access beautiful parts of life, until I realized that healing never stops. In light of that, how can we see, in your opinion, how can we see healing as like an opportunity to thrive instead of this like ongoing journey and you're never there? Because I think there's that ultimate feeling of like, eventually everyone wants to kind of be there in their mind, but knowing that there is like interchangeable through life. Like, how can we embrace that journey more so than like, oh my gosh, not again, oh my gosh, not again.
The thing is, I think people think healing is a destination, and it's actually, like you said, it's a journey, it's a process. So it's down to you to be able to see where in that process can I feel okay. So I always use this thing of cry on the go. So even if you're feeling it, cry, and if, let's say, 10 minutes later you want to break out in a dance, do it. Because that's healing. But I guess if you're already seeing it as like a tedious work consistently, that's where you're going to stay. It's like telling yourself, I'm going to be on freeze forever. So if you're on freeze forever, you're not going to move. But even ice breaks.
Yeah.
So
we actually need to pause because that is very, very powerful. Even ice breaks. It's facts.
Literally. So you have to find the joy, the peace, the acceptance in your process to know that there's going to be days I'm going to get triggered. But what do I want to do with that trigger? Do I want to like self-talk my way out of it? Do I want to sit in it? What do I want to do? Because whatever you do is absolutely okay. But you need to know where you're heading with it. And then, just kind of follow through with that. So less seeing it as a destination, because then it becomes like a task.
Yeah. I think that's maybe where the
And if you see yourself as a human being, as a task, that is a job that you need to retire from today. Because that is very unhealthy. And I think people don't understand what happens in their somatic. So when you're doing those stuff, it's like, for example, I was with someone and we were talking and she was saying, oh, I'm not stressed, but I can feel like my body is stressed. And sometimes that happens. So you might not directly be stressed about something, but your body is under so much. This is why people get really sick, have heart attacks, all of these things, because you're not monitoring what's happening.
Yeah.
So, and that's basically because you're probably seeing yourself as a task. And you're not, you're a garden, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I think don't see healing as a destination, see it as a journey and a process that I always say hour by hour rather than day by day. Yeah. Because hour by hour you can change.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that a lot of the time, not every time, but frequently I've been feeling like when I get home today from work or from wherever, I would have had a very different experience to maybe what I anticipate. And not putting this stigma on like how everything is going to manifest, but equally being intentional, which kind of leads me to something else. Intentionality is obviously like super important. And without it, like things can't, in my opinion, things can't truly like grow and elevate and expand, change, all of these things. From something I read, you consider yourself like a free flow individual. First of all, what does that mean?
I don't like to be boxed.
Okay.
So I am in a lot of different fields. And I think sometimes when people think of therapists, especially because of how we've always seen therapists growing up, it's like, that's all you do. You have to be like in this woolen knitted jumper, and you're just like, exactly. And it's no, I've actually been blessed with a lot of gifts and talents, and I'm going to tap into all of those because I guess from different standpoints, from let's say my beliefs and just kind of like world values, you know, they talk about having various streams of income, and I've got various streams of talents. So I just allow myself to tap into whatever it is that I feel like I can do. And so, yeah, I just feel like if I don't box myself, I shouldn't be boxed. So if you see me in like an investment world, I can do it. If you see me in my therapy world, I can do it. If you see me writing lyrics, I can do it. So that's my thing. And I guess from a personal standpoint is that I just allow the water in me to flow. So there's no cap. Yeah. So literally, like when you think of like a bottle of water, you close it, there's no lid. Like I'm constantly literally pouring. Yeah.
And flowing.
Exactly.
I love that image. How then does flow meet intentionality?
Big one, to be honest. And I'm really big about being intentional, more so recently. I feel like as you grow wiser, good thing, instead of saying getting older, as you grow wiser, being intentional, organized, disciplined, and discerning is so important. So I feel like you have to really sit with yourself and think about what matters to me. That's not selfish, by the way. What matters to me? Where do I want to put my energy? Where don't I want to put my energy? And just understand that, like, actually, you're better off making a decision. So if it's like a no, for example, you're better off making that no and feeling like you were discerning in that moment than saying yes and getting burnt out down the road. So just thinking about, just being intentional about yourself. So it comes back down to you. So that's like with friendships, relationships, work, everything. I think you really have to see yourself as the prize. You really have to know that, you know what, everything does start and end with me, and everything else branches out. So how much do I care about me? And then from then, I think that's where you know what to be intentional about. I think people struggle with it sometimes because it's about other people, and then you kind of fall short from there, and then things go left. So
Where have you found that you've needed to be most intentional in those areas that you mentioned? For example, relationships, work, even I'll put family in there, friendships. Where do you feel like the space of those three is like, okay, I've really got to be more intentional here?
I'd say right now in this season is my body. So working out, exercise, that stuff. Like I literally call my body my home, like literally home body.
It is.
And I feel like that's where I need to be more intentional. I really like walking, exercise. I like doing all that stuff. And I just feel like recently it's like, you're just doing some stuff that, you know, to be fair, it's not bad stuff. I think because I'm a really like clean eater, if I have like a croissant, I might think, oh, you're being bad. Do you know what I mean? But I won't shoot myself in the foot, but it's just that don't make that a habit. But in a previous season, not long ago, I felt like my cup was overflowing for friends and everything else was a little bit capped. And I had to have a very honest conversation with everyone that I class as my friend. And I said, so I'm kind of detaching a little bit. So to be honest, I guess I had quite a bit of codependent friendships.
Right. And for people that don't know what codependency is, just to explain that.
So I guess in easy terms, it's on my side, it would be kind of enabling, enabling certain things, which means that it creates space for them to not do a lot. And so they become attached to me and become dependent on what I say goes. Right. Which is not a healthy dynamic because that means that you then now make decisions for other people.
As well,
subconsciously, which is not,
that's not the vibe.
So I feel like there was a lot, and I guess because I'm that natural nurturer and all of that stuff, so I had to kind of pull away from that. And it doesn't mean that I was like completely distant, don't speak to me. No, like I was still there, but I just had to release the part that was overcompensating. And that was because I guess my work, my practice was becoming more intense, and my clients are very important to me. This is people's lives. So I knew that my focus had to be there, and so I couldn't do the two.
Yeah.
So there's a way that I will show up with my friends that, you know, I can't do, as in, I mean, a way that I'll show up with my clients, that I can't do with my friends.
Yeah.
So with my friends, whereas before it'd be like, I'd give advice. I don't give advice. I don't encourage anyone to. I think it's a messy trap, personally.
Explain.
So I guess in a sense of, you can kind of suggest. So what I would do is that if someone says, oh, I want to leave him, whatever, I could probably say like, oh yeah, no, you should, because X, Y, Z and this. And now it's, oh, I want to leave him. Okay, so what makes you feel that? Why you want? What's going on for you?
Yeah.
Oh, he's just this. Okay, well, whatever makes you happy, love.
Yeah.
Because the onus is on you.
Yes.
Because essentially, when you're going to make the actual decision, you're not going to think of what Laura told me to do. You're going to think of what's happening for you inside.
Correct. And actually, please remember what you're about to say. I just reheard, it's a messy trap in my brain.
Yeah.
And I remember a time where I gave someone some advice for something that they outright asked me, what do you think I should do? And whenever I give advice, I try to think about not necessarily if I was you, but if I was in this situation. And that I have felt has like safeguarded me from any mess up until this particular situation. Because if I tell you what I would do if I was in this situation, it's actually about me and like my character, how I would respond, etc., rather than putting myself in your body and your head and your psyche and your everything, and then trying to live out a solution, thinking about if I was actually you. And I gave her some advice, and it was very, very messy. She did what I suggested. It didn't go the way that she hoped, and then blamed me for it going left. And I thought, what is that?
So the onus was on you.
Yeah,
for a
all of a sudden
situation
I'm
that
the villain
wasn't
for a situation. You asked me what I think, I said what I think, and now it's all gone
Messy
Pete's on.
trap.
It's messy.
Yeah. Always bring the onus back to because it's your situation. So how's it making you feel right now? What's going on for you? Why? How come you've got to this decision? Because it's prompts that they need to answer, and some people don't actually have the mental range, the language. They don't have that to kind of forethink it for themselves. That's probably where you could be of support.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I was you, maybe I wouldn't be in that situation, or maybe I would, but I'm not. You're in that situation right now, so I can't even speak from that place.
Yeah.
So let's speak from what's happening to you.
Yeah.
And then you can figure that out.
Yeah, yeah. And that actually reminds me of something that my therapist introduced me to called the drama triangle. Oh. And in so many ways, that was like one of our first sessions, she said, oh, like, you know, one of the first things we actually did in our first session, actually, and this will be interesting to hear how this manifests in your life. I'll talk about the drama triangle first. So she showed me a video of this triangle about like the present and like the villain, the victim, the hero, all of these things. And I said, would you look at life? So for context, the drama triangle is a theory where there's basically a line and you kind of live in one of three places. So like a victim, a villain, or a hero. And essentially, like, in short, the hero is a person that, for example, Laura might need fish. Instead of me teaching her how to fish, I would just go and make her a fish sandwich. The villain is the person that everything's always somebody else's fault, right? Like, it's your fault. If you didn't tell me to do that, I wouldn't be here. And the victim is life is happening to me. And then the flip side of that is like the hero becomes a coach, so like teaches you how to make your fish sandwich. The villain becomes a challenger, so like asks you those kind of prompts, like, oh, like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And then the victim becomes a creative, so he like they start thinking about, okay, this is happening. How can I be creative in finding a solution? Blah, blah, blah. And I thought this is so interesting, and so many different places do we show up in those different pockets. So would you say in your friendships you were the hero?
Yes,
It sounds
absolutely.
like it.
Yeah. And
are you the hero in your family? Is that hereditary? Is that your family's like quite heroic?
Yeah, to be honest, like even my mum, like yeah, absolutely. I'm even very proud of myself. But yeah, literally, that's the theme, and it can be extremely exhausting. Like, yeah, it can be extremely exhausting. I really had to take that cape off.
Yeah.
Because I thought, I'm not here to save anyone but myself, honestly. And I can still be a very present, efficient, great friend, but you have to learn how to do things yourself.
Yeah.
Because I always think in your dynamics, things are going to change. Some people are going to leave the country. Some people are going to, get married, have kids, whatever it is. And you're only going to get busier. And so in those times, if I can't show up for you, what does that now mean for our dynamic then? So, yeah, I think it's a message, right?
Yeah. But I think those questions are really empowering because it makes you do the work. And I think that's where that codependency kind of links back to that codependency thing that you were talking about, in light of like people just expecting you to kind of just make their decisions and like create their life almost.
Because they've probably never been in positions where they were able to really embrace their autonomy. They've probably never been in positions where they had to make decisions. You had your parents making decisions for you, then you had a partner making decisions for you. So you've never had to be the main character, basically. So, but then what happens is it's very hard to take accountability sometimes, those people, because you're always ready to kind of shift blame on others, because you are so probably far from yourself that making decisions and all of that stuff means I have to look internally.
Yeah.
And I think lockdown definitely showed how far a lot of people are from themselves.
Wow. Yeah.
So
Yeah. I agree with that. And how also, like, I heard a lot of couples separated as well.
Yeah.
Like, far from just the truth of the connection, because one person's going out to work, the other person's going out to work, they just come in past each other like ships in the night. But that reminds me to go back to the first thing I did in my therapy session.
Just to touch on the couple stuff, just on a low level, I think, so when we think of intimacy, it's a very big thing, and I think a lot of people think intimacy and think sex. No, that's literally at the end. But a lot of people, the closest thing that they've had to intimacy is sex, but they haven't actually had what intimacy is. So it's very easy for your relationship to break down because you haven't actually understood your body languages, your love languages, all of the things that actually embody intimacy. And so it's just, I like you, I'm sexually attracted to you, we're having sex, and that's how we're bonding. And so when you're put into like intensive situations, it's very easy to fizzle out because you actually don't really know each other. So
Yeah. And how have you seen, now I feel like, what for you is like a sure sign of intimacy? So if you're speaking to maybe a young girl who like likes this guy and she's like wondering like what the situation is, what, I was about to use a word that we're not going to use, what experience or prompts, I was going to say advice, would you give her to like look out for like intimacy points almost?
How do they make you feel when you're around them? Not sexually. What happens when you're having conversations with them? Are you spaced out? Are you really present? Are you listening to what they're saying? Because a lot of times you could be speaking to someone and you're completely spaced out. You are not connected to that person. You're not even interested the slightest. Because anyone that you're intimately connected with, you are listening to everything that's coming out of their mouth.
Absolutely.
So yeah, do you feel safe around them? So really just doing the body scan of how you're feeling when you're with them, how your conversations are going. When you're not with them, what's the last thing you remember about them? So everything non-sexual, because the sexual stuff can be there. It can be there with anyone, to be honest. So those things about like body scanning your mind, body, and soul. So I'd say those things.
Yeah,
And you realise there's a lot of silence after that.
That's really true. That's really, really true. I think in a lot of cases, also just like in my experience, like the type of conversation that you have, and how much of themselves they're prepared to give to you willingly, is something that I've found is like, okay, this is new. I wouldn't necessarily say it's like a thumbs up, because I know that can sometimes be a hook. But like I found that like the types of conversations as well, and like how much of themselves they just volunteer. So parts of their life, their history, their family, their friendships, the deeps of themselves, like
absolutely,
just without you saying, oh, so how did you grow up? They just say, oh, like, you know what? It's mad because you know my brother, and then you just get this like new part, and you're like, oh wow, I didn't realize we were here.
They might feel safe with you, unless they're like an oversharer.
And knowing that line is very important. Because I think, especially in my younger years, I used to think that I was, oh, my taste is such a great son, just telling me loads of things, and then we go out and I see him telling someone that you just met the same thing. I think, right, you're just an oversharer, isn't it? Like you just like telling people your business, and that's fine.
And it's not, it needs to be regulated somehow.
We've got to rein that back. We've actually got to rein that back. A big thing that I really want to touch on is boundaries. When do you realise you need to set them? How do you set them? And like, why do you think people dishonour them?
I love boundaries. And I think boundaries don't always have to be electric. People don't always need to like get shocked at it. They can be so gentle. Because I think when people think boundaries now, especially like things always have like a bandwagon. It's like now's boundaries. It's like, yeah, leave me alone. And it's like, no. I realised I needed to set them when I felt like my own life wasn't stressing me, but other people's lives were.
Wow.
And I was not willing to take paracetamol for other people's pain. I don't even take paracetamol. So, so I thought this ain't it. And that's when I had to kind of relinquish certain things and just be, cutthroat. How to set them? For me, I actually have gentle conversations, and I always see it as conversations are practice for somebody else. So I could be having a conversation with you and setting a boundary, and it could be teaching me for the next person I'm going to be in relationship with, whether that's platonic or romantic. So for example, if I don't like someone doing something to me, I would just politely say, do you know what? I don't really like that,
Yeah.
And it might be, oh, sorry, I won't do that again. If they keep probing, I've actually told you, and it actually makes me feel quite uncomfortable. And I don't really want to have this conversation all the time. So could we, stuff like that. I guess let's say some people like overcall and stuff like that. Lucky there's a D&D button, but you have people that it's like they will still call you. I think people have like nagging friends or partners or whatever, and it's just having that conversation that, look, I literally unwind at this time. This is why I set my phone off at this time. And I'd really appreciate if you could respect that. Yeah. Just because if there's something with you that you probably didn't want me to meddle with, I would try to respect that as well.
How do you find those conversations have gone? Have they been well received?
Not always, but that's a you problem, my dear. It's I can't do it because what's happened if I hold on to how it's making you feel, because this is a boundary. So this is me protecting myself, and what I'm noticing is that you are upset that I'm wanting to protect myself. That's something that you have to deal with. That's an internal trigger for you. So we can talk about it. We can talk about what is upsetting you, but when we talk about it, it'll come down to, well, basically you probably feel rejected or this or that.
It gets to that point.
Whilst I can understand that, that's a work that you have to do. That's a journey you have to take on yourself. Yeah. Because I'm doing this for me. Otherwise, what happens is I'm literally cutting into a wound that you're not going to be able to fix for me. Yeah, my dear. Beloved. Yeah.
It's facts. Yeah. It's facts. And why do you think people dishonour their boundaries? or like how, not even why do you think people dishonor them, but how do you think people get to the stage of dishonoring their boundaries? For example, they've done everything you've just said. They've given the gentle reminders, oh, do you know what, like I'm not really feeling that, like do you mind that, da, 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 da. Maybe they've had to have another conversation like, oh, I know that I said this to you before, and like it's not really being well received, like how can we kind of work this through? And then it gets to the place of like, okay, like people just think, oh, do you know what, I've told them loads of times, they don't really listen, I'm just gonna why do you think people get to that point like, oh, I'm just gonna leave it?
Honestly, it might sound like but I genuinely feel like, and I could even say it for me at some points, you know, that you really haven't got to that deep space of I really love me. And it might sound like, oh my God, how can you say that? Even that kind of reaction is a red flag, to be honest, because if you're so sure about yourself, nothing can shake that.
Yeah.
Because you understand that they're the ones that are not respecting the boundary, but this is what is protecting me and I have to honor me. So there could be a fear of, oh my God, these people might leave, they might leave me, they might, you know, and it's like, then, you know, oh, I have to kind of work with them. That's an attachment issue now that you have to work on. So, and actually you're not going to work on these things until you learn to respect your own boundary. So literally, I don't even know what song it is. I'll respect you if you respect yourself. Literally.
Yeah. Self-respect, speak to it, boy.
Exactly. So I think it's that place of, and it's absolutely okay, because sometimes it can take you 40 years to get to that place, 20 years, 10 months. But it's just about learning to kind of get to the place where, you know, do you know what it is? I'm really clear in where I stand when it comes to me. And sometimes, people are just not in that space, especially when they're early on in setting boundaries. It's always going to go left for a while until it's like, no, I can't do this anymore. And that's fine. You're not always going to get it right the first, second time. So I think don't be hard on yourself. I think the biggest thing is you actually try to do it. But if you're consistently trying and it's like you're still dishonoring your own boundaries, then there has to be a lot more inner work. Self-respect for yourself.
Yeah, that's key. There's another quote that came up around that. Something that you said. Getting familiar with the beauty of setting boundaries. Self-sabotage is another key area that I feel that when I look around at my world, black women sit in a lot more than anyone else. I don't know if that's your experience. If it's not your experience, why do you think that generally as human beings we self-sabotage?
I will say quite a lot of black women are very firm in their stuff, but I think that took a lot of work to get there. But I feel like these things are very historical. So they start from the slave trade. They then go into families, careers. So I think there's been so much on black women that hammers down that your place is at home breastfeeding, not even just your child, but somebody else's child. So all I'm good at is very much what is the main maternal stuff. So when you go out into a place of work, there's already so many flags of why you're not good enough. But that was, you know, so to speak, a man that said these things. And so there's just this thing of there's not enough validation for a lot of black women to show that, no, I'm good enough to take over this space. And then if you've got, you know, traumas at home or in relationships, whatever it is, all of those things affect your self-esteem. And some people get really low in it. And so they sit in that space of, I am what everybody else said I am. And so they can get into relationships, careers, and just go in with that stance and literally self-sabotage their way through it until they realize, oh my gosh, I now did this. But I think when you're thinking about, okay, I'm self-sabotaging and I don't want this for myself anymore, you really have to get to a place of knowing that, no, I've been called to enter this room. So I need to take authority of this space. And it's just little practices of like walking with your, you know, your back straight, your head held high, dressing how you want to be addressed. doing whatever you want to do. I think there's this thing. So I was having a conversation with my friend, and she was doing something just to like, get herself happy, and we're talking about that stuff, and I was just like, I think we need to stop thinking that we are poor, and in that sense of, it's like, even if you have £1, you're not poor. Whatever you can do with that pound, do it to build that confidence. If it's the pound that you need to do to go and buy floss, get it, do what you need to do so that you can show up for yourself. But nobody's going to believe your greatness unless you do.
Yeah.
So I think we have a lot of power as Black women, but we can't always wait for somebody to tell us that we're good at this or we're great at this. You have to believe it in yourself and go for it.
Yeah, yeah. And it takes courage.
Absolutely.
It takes courage and it takes bravery.
I was in it. I was deep in it. I hadn't had Instagram for like years. I think I came off in like 2015. So the last time I had Instagram, when it was literally friends and family. And then I was encouraged to like start putting my writing on Instagram. And for so long, I just thought it's going to be a page with just words. They're never going to know who's behind this. That's fine, etc. And at some point I realized, oh gosh, this is self-sabotage. Like you're just shying away from so much because maybe you don't feel like you're good enough to do this or that. And to be fair, to an extent, I think it was good. It was preserving me. But I also recognized the part where I was thinking that, oh, you probably don't think that you're good enough at doing X, Y, Z. And I just had to literally keep telling myself, like, whilst I was learning that there's a time for everything, that no, you are very good at this.
Yes.
And, likes don't define me anyway, never have. And it's just do what you need to do. Let it touch the lives that it touches. And that's that. Show up how you need to. Because like they say, not everyone's going to come to your door, knock and grab you out of your house. You need to go for it.
You need to go for it.
So I just started thinking, I'm just going to do what I need to do. And that's that.
Yeah, no, that's powerful. That's powerful. And you just have to like almost see yourself on the edge of it sounds dramatic, but like on the edge of a cliff sometimes. And just like the bottom line is, there is something beneath this that can protect me, whether it's water or ground, or people. So just like leaning into that feeling of like, I'm just gonna do it. And ultimately people always, and I think it's the feeling of like, what will people say? People can kind of get caught up in that. Whether you do or don't, people still talk. So you might as well.
Exactly.
You might as well.
And well, for people in general, but I think, as we're talking about Black women, perfectionism, massive thing that stops people from going forward to do what they need to do.
Yeah.
Everything has to be like, and it's,
perfect.
I get it. Like you want things to be of a certain standard, but you will get to the place where it is. For now, give what you have. Yeah. Do what you need to do.
Yes, agreed. I really believe in execute and then refine, execute and then refine, execute and then refine, because if we keep waiting for like the perfect, so what? And also you don't learn anything, and I'm big on that. Like, what is this here to teach me? So that's also important. But I think also what's important is your book. It's your book. Please tell everyone about your book, the genesis behind it, etc.
So Letters from the Heart, that's my book, and it's literally letters from the heart. So it's about us, it's for us, and us meaning the wider community of everyone that has felt something. So whether that is trauma, whether that is healing, whether that is joy. And how I describe it is, so it's a collective of like different conversations, different feelings. And I see it as short pieces that you can put up that explain what you're going through without outing that this is what I'm going through. So it's like a status. And so that's literally what it is. So it's really short pieces. And I did it like that because I really wanted people to easily consume the reading. It just happened just like that, because I always thought I'll write a book in like my mid-40s, and but during lockdown I thought I've got so many pieces and I might as well put them together. But I thought, oh my God, how am I going to do this? And 2 people spoke to me about, have you ever thought about writing a book? And I thought, this is really close in time, maybe I should. So I then went on the journey, a lot of sleepless nights and stuff, and then Letters from the Heart was born. It's a really good book. Yes, I say that because it's my book. But even just reading it sometimes, I completely forget that I wrote the book.
Yeah.
Because it's so relatable. There's one about polyamorous relationships, not consented polyamorous relationships, which a lot of people are in, sadly. Yeah.
Not the look down.
Yeah, and there's a line in it that says, does she know about me? I'll leave that there. Yeah.
Yeah. It's it's choices at the end of the day. It really is choices at the end of the day. Do you have a favourite excerpt from the book or a favourite part of it?
Yeah, I like them all. I do, but I do. Okay, I'm gonna. Yeah, to be fair, this one is my favourite.
Yeah.
But shall I read it?
Yes.
Okay, it's quite lengthy, this one, but it says, I could have yelled, I could have screamed, I could have had been in your face saying, what the hell do you mean? But I didn't. I faced my pillow, soaking it with enough water to keep someone hydrated. I kept my cool, as my real actions could have had me acting a fool. Here you are acting as if nothing has happened. If your energy could speak any louder, I'm sure I could hear your body language screaming we move. Meanwhile, I'm here picking up our pieces since you are acting like you have nothing to lose. I am done.
Wow. The pillow image is so relatable. It's for everyone. We've all had that like unstoppable overflow of emotion that like just won't
stop.
Just won't stop. But as you said previously, like cry on the go and let it out. I think that's really key.
It's so key, and it's like, this is like a personal one, but I feel like I love that moment now when I look back at it. But I remember years ago, I was, and this was probably like, I think it was like a year and a half after I had split up with that person. And I was in Sainsbury's and I was walking, and I really liked Stormzy's song, the one that he wrote to Maya Jama. I forgot what it's called now. And I was listening to it, and the words in it, like I kept listening back to it, and I absolutely broke down in an hour in Sainsbury's, like hysteric. Wow. Like I was really crying. And at the time I'm thinking like, why? Because I was really over the situation. But I guess, like I say to people, when you break up with people, whether it's platonic or romantic, you're grieving.
Yes.
And so grieving sometimes has no end in that sense until you end. And so there was a part of that season that song did something, and that was that. And it was just such a release. From that moment, I was like, wow, like, whoa, that's it. I feel free. And that was literally my final act of that. And then I moved on to have a happy life after that.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. And in terms of happiness, before we wrap, like, what does happiness and joy and peace and excitement look like for you now?
I think if I think practically, like in a day, like a moment, it'd be sitting down, having a nice cloudy apple, watching Black Love, and just smiling to myself, because I'm just like, do you know what? Everything is in the order that it needs to be.
Yeah.
And it's those little things for me that is happiness, because some people they don't have that. But I think for me, happiness is the fact that I have the complete choice, decision to decide how I want my day-to-day to look, and that's no one else's decision. And I think that's what makes me happy personally.
Yeah, that overall agency.
Yeah, exactly, because I think growing up, even for a lot of people, subconsciously you don't realize how many people have made decisions for you that have made you really unhappy. So yeah, for me it's the fact that I literally decide what's happening, and
day to day. I love that. I absolutely love that. So where can people follow you, keep up with everything that you're doing, etc.?
So you can follow me on Instagram. What's my Instagram? Laura-Jayne U, the letter U. I've just made TikTok, same.
Love that.
My website, so everything's on my link tree in my bio, so you can keep up with me there. I
love that. And before we go, actually, last thing, What lesson has been most valuable to you this year?
Quality over quantity in everything. Work, relationships, both platonic, romantic. Me, it has to be quality over quantity. Numbers sometimes don't mean nothing, but the quality of things do. And I think, to be fair, I have a word for this season, and it's consistency and discipline. So that's
it. Love it. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been amazing.